Alright, part 3 of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre original in-depth discussion and review. Alright, so we left off with her coming down the stairs after she's seen the 2 dead corpses.
Everyone's dead except for Sally at this point.
And Leatherface is at the bottom of the stairs, like totally leather-faced out.
And then he makes his way upstairs. She runs back into the house.
And at this point, she runs upstairs and he's running after her, and then she just totally jumps out.
And like we said, the 2 dead corpses.
It's totally sugar. The Grips whipped out the sugar glass.
They
whipped out the sugar glass, and she jumps out the 2nd floor window, and then she falls, and she's like, ah, and stands down there for a minute because she's hurt and whatnot, and then Leatherface makes his way out there with the chainsaw.
Oh yeah, and then she runs back through woods.
She runs back through woods again.
Not run that way.
And then it cuts to a total 70s filler, another 10 minutes run through the woods.
At this point, you think the movie's like 2-dimensional. She keeps on running back and forth. All the characters keep on going in a straight line, like from the house.
You're like, what is this? You're like, what is this? Sonic from Sega? You can only start from the left and go all the way to the right.
What is this 2-dimensional Sega graphics, like Sonic and Knuckles, like you go left and right.
It's total 10 minutes again of her running around.
It's like Super Mario Brothers.
And like this is like a total plot hole, like freaking Myers Fan 25's like gap teeth or something, where the writers like have her run all the way to the gas station in like a matter of 2 seconds when it's like 5 miles away. And you're like, okay.
I know, because they stop at the original store and he's like,
get directions, and he's like 5 miles or something away, and then she totally runs all the way there.
So they only have
like Leatherface chasing.
So they only mapped out and got under contract to film at like 3 locations in the movie, and they're like, all right, we got right here, and right here for these 3 days.
Over there and then record.
So yeah, she makes her way because it's in the script. She makes her way to the store.
To the store, so it's recorded, and boom, you're there.
She makes her way into the store.
Alright, so she gets there.
Running all this way, like, okay.
And she runs inside the front part, and Leatherface doesn't come in. You know, he's like 10 feet behind, and he doesn't show up to the door. And it's the old guy, like, cooking meat. And she's like, help, help, help. And she doesn't even really say anything. She's like, and he's like, you're okay, you're okay.
You're watching it for the first time, you think he's just the store opener. And he comforts her like he's like Mr. Walton or something.
He comforts her.
He's like, I'm going to get the old 30s pickup.
He's like, let me get the truck around. And then she's sitting there and she's crying.
She sees the barbecue and she starts looking around.
It's like total 70s, like up close dome of the meat, and you can't even tell
what it is.
It's
like a Wisconsin bratwurst.
It's like a total bratwurst from out of your freaking like beer batter.
It's like a beer brat. It's like a Johnsonville beer brat that they just stuck on the grill.
Anthony Weiner. All right, go. And then and then he comes back in and he's got like a sack of potatoes and he pulls out a rope.
He comes back in
and she's like, "What?"
Okay, why they chose? Oh my God! When they wrote this, like I don't know what they were thinking. He comes back to gag and bag her with a potato sack and a broom, like he's a freaking ghetto like, hoochie mama from the hood, sitting on the porch like.
No, she's like the neighbor from Mrs. Doubtfire with the broom, like, you got my begonias, and she's moving the rabbit. He's freaking hitting her with the broom. All right. No, but before that,
and it's like the stupidest shot.
Oh yeah, because he freaking films it for like 30 seconds
just,
straight.
Tapping her on
he's tapping her with the broom, like, and then he beats her down.
So he gags and bags
the chick, and freaking
it's
wraps
like the
her up.
70s equivalent to roofing.
It's like, okay.
A potato sack and a broom, I guess.
And then he's loading her up into the car, and they get in the car and he's driving away, and he's like hitting her like with like freaking with like a stick or something, like in the car, like, you're gonna be okay. And he's like, and it's like total filler again.
I know, it's like
another 10 minutes of him driving.
The whole first half of the movie, and they it goes at a sweet pace.
Like we talked about in part 1.
The second half, it's like
at the first beginning, they film it, pretty rapid.
The
the scene where
they edit it perfect.
Franklin falls down from the car passing by, and then it cuts, and it cuts to the hitchhiker, and it cuts and cuts. But then now
it had a bunch of things that make you want to come back and watch the movie over again.
The rest of the movie, they do scenes for 10-minute increments of the scene, and you already get it, and it's like, oh, go on and going on. But anyways,
so it's like fast forward.
So he's on his way, and he shows up at the Hughes residence, and it's like freaking.
No, and it's like
Bill Cosby. It's like Jedediah.
It's like a combination of Jedediah and Bill Cosby.
It's like Jedediah right outside, and he stops, and he's like, "Hey, what are you?" He's
the original hitchhiker from the opening scene.
And he's like,
goes
"I got
crazy.
a skunk." Leatherface's brother. He's like, "I got a skunk," and he's like, "Yeah, well, I got a bitch bagged and gagged."
And so And he's like,
and he hits him.
and he's
He's like,
scolding him. He's like, "Don't be hanging around those graveyards. I told you not to be hanging around those graves." And it's total improv from the actor.
Oh, and it goes on
And he
again.
kinda
And
sucks
then he finally
balls
gets
to
up to the
death.
house, and then freaking they're pulling the chick
And he's
out.
like, "You should have been babysitting your brother Leatherface. You can't leave that meathead alone."
Hey, he's like, you can't leave him alone. And he's like, all crazy. Anyway, so they bring her in the house.
He's like, "I'm gonna get the switch on you."
And then he's coming up to the door, and he's like, oh, what the...
And then it's kind of like raw, and like the camera's way
And then
like
he's-
set up, back up, and you can't even like hear the
And then he's
dialogue.
talking
He's,
to
he's like, "Where's the
Leatherface.
kids at? Where's the?" Oh yeah, and he's talking.
No, and Leatherface gets on a freaking Mrs. Doubtfire mask, like, hello!
It's
and
like
you-
a combination
and you're
of
like-
Mrs. Doubtfire
And you're like, are you kidding me? You're like, you put on a chick mask? You're like, alright.
it's like a combination of Mrs. Doubtfire and like the Muppets,
With like
Miss
this freaking
Piggy or
whipped
something.
cream on her face. Like, you might as well did that for Leatherface's mask. freaking pie of the face.
He's like, "Where are the rest of the kids?" And he's like,
oh yeah, no, and this is where he talks, and he's got like a freaking straight up Mrs. Doubtfire and Betty White voice.
It's like a combination of
"Oh."
Betty Boo and
He's like,
like
I don't know.
it's like a combination
He's
of
like, "Did you
Betty
get all the
Boo and
kids?"
Mrs.
He's like, "Did
Doubtfire,
you get
Robin
everyone?"
Williams like improv voice.
And Leatherface is like, yeah, I got all of them.
How they got all the
I got all
How
of
they
them.
got all the Mrs. Doubtfire references
like-
into this movie that was shot in 1973
I don't know how
is
they
beyond
did it.
me.
I don't know. They had a time machine or something. Anyways, and then freaking he's trying to scold, and then he's like, trying to find something to scold Leatherface about, and then he's like, well, you still messed up the door, and he freaking starts
And it's
hitting him.
just improv, like
He's like, you still messed up the
like
door
the
with the
writers on the
chainsaw."
script just like wrote, yeah, he scolds Leatherface because he's a mutant.
Anyways, and then it cuts to like the dinner scene. Even though it's
No,
still
he's
like,
like,
a total
"Go and get
filler.
Grandpa."
Yeah, oh yeah, they're like, go get Grandpa, and the freaking Jedediah and Leatherface go upstairs to get Grandpa.
And it's totally 70s
And
filler.
even though,
It's
like-
total one shot. They like film it and like they make the actors like actually do like the manual labor and
like, all right, film
bring
it.
them
All right,
down.
pick him up. All right, come down.
And
film,
they don't
film,
even
film.
cut it at all. They
Forever.
just-
All right, come up.
and
All right,
they
and
don't
they
even
set
show
him
a
up.
close up or anything. It's just like
And then out of nowhere, Leatherface puts on his freaking like Sunday's best.
and you're like, okay, what does he do? Some door to door sales on the
You're
weekends?
like, I didn't know Leatherface was a Mormon. All right, go on. So it's the dinner scene, and Grandpa's there, and freaking, and then they come around her and freaking undo her gag, and like
no,
freaking cut her thumb.
she passes out and she wakes up and it's
It's
the dinner scene as
Then-
we all know.
No, before she wakes up, that's what's going on though. They cut her thumb, and she's feeding the blood to like the freaking old guy.
Oh
And
yeah,
freaking-
what is with
and then he's
that
like,
scene?
No, and then he's like alive, and you're like, okay, he's alive.
And they're
you're
like,
all right, even though he's like dead. And then the guy's moving around like,
He's like, "It's
and he's sucking on the blood.
And they're
of her
like,
thumb.
yeah, and he's like, yeah, Grandpa.
And then
used to-
she
used
wakes
to be
up.
good at. So it's like a.
And then she.
It's
no,
like
and
a
then she
family
wakes up.
history of like serial killers. He's like, yeah, Grandpa used to be
Be
good
good
at
at-
killing these broads back in the day. And you're like, what? The
And
silent
then no,
film
it's
era?
totally filler of them talking. And the older guy's like, yeah, I don't like killing. I don't like the killing or anything. Talking
I know,
to
it's
Jedediah.
just like random, even
He's
though
talking to
he's the
Jedediah.
one who's like.
And it's going on forever. And then they finally.
He's like the slumlord of this bitch.
And then they
like,
finally
and he's
get
like, I
to-
don't need to not kill people. You guys can do it.
They finally get to they're like,
It's
all
all
right,
like
let's kill her.
sketchy dialogue. Like,
They're like, all right, let's kill her,
confusing.
and then they like wheel up Grandpa on his freaking rocking chair to her and bend her over. Like they undo her gag and her tied back around. They undo
she
her
gets loose.
and hang her over, and then Leatherface is holding like the thumb of like the old guy with the hammer, and he's like, and it keeps on dropping it. It's like total like improv. They're like, all right, pick it back up. All right, pick it back up, and it's like going on forever. And you're like,
While
oh,
Leatherface is in a suit.
and by this time you're like, is the movie
and
gonna
then so
end?
she gets loose and jumps out another sugar window.
Oh yeah, this where shit's like another grips whip out the sugar glass, and,
And
she jumps out
and
the
it's
first
just
floor.
broad daylight, even though
And
it
then
was
it's broad
dinner
daylight,
time.
even though they were just having dinner. Like they must have been having dinner like
And it
5
was
in
like
the
the
morning.
next day. They're like, oh, we got to wrap up this shooting. So,
So
it's
then
go.
Leatherface starts
We can't wait
chasing
for
her with the
night.
chainsaw.
We
She's
only have
coming
this
down.
house for another
She's coming
day.
down the road, but then also Jedediah's chasing her, like retarded chasing her, like like
Like a heroin
like,
addict or something.
And like dodging her, and then she makes it out to the road, and Leatherface is quickly behind, both of them. And then like they're like, oh wait, we don't even have a freaking African American in this movie, and they have a trucker pull over, and then
it's a random semi truck.
They're like, all right, we had to have a token black guy in the '70s, and then he gets out, and he doesn't even have any lines, and he's like. And then freaking...
No, then they go through the freaking semi-truck and he grabs a monkey wrench.
No, it's tight. No, it's tight because when he first pulls up, he hits Jedediah. And the blood goes everywhere. It's like, it's pretty tight. And he's underneath the wheels.
Yeah, he kills the hitchhiker, his brother.
And then and then Leatherface comes around and like they get inside the car. He pulls the chick into the car. And then freaking Leatherface is like, shh, even though the chainsaw's not even moving. Scratching the door of the freaking semi. And then they go outside the other door.
The other way.
He grabs a monkey wrench.
Run
like it's
around.
that Nickelodeon movie in the '90s.
And by the way, Leatherface is in a suit officially.
Oh yeah, he's in a freaking suit and tie officially still, like coming out to the road.
No, it's just become iconic over time. You can't even make fun of it.
I can't make fun of it, but still, if you're
if
you're a critic back then, you can make fun. But anyways, so
yeah, if you saw it in 1970, you'd be like, what the.
So they make it outside the back part, the second door of the semi truck. They get out, and then Leatherface is quickly behind them, and then freaking the black guy just keeps running, and then he goes off like he keeps it's like two-dimensional like the Sonic thing.
No, he throws the monkey wrench, hits him in the forehead.
And Leatherface
drops the chainsaw and it cuts his leg a little
and he's
bit.
like, oh.
Actually, that shot was pretty badass for the 70s. It looks kind of real.
So then he gets back up though, and he starts chasing him. And the chick
then out of nowhere, a stunt guy, they like hired a truck for the day, a pickup truck, pulls a U-turn once he sees the crazy altercation going on.
Yeah, the black guy runs off camera to the right.
What is this, an episode of Cops?
The truck pulls up, and she's trying to get in the bed, and you're like, okay, she can't even make it in the bed.
The black guy ran off the screen because he's not even a real actor. Filler. It was just the guy who owned the semi-truck. They were like, yeah, we need a semi-truck for the ending of this scene. Yeah, drive your semi-truck, outside of Fort Worth, 20 minutes west. So he just leaves his semi-truck and keeps running to the right. And takes off. Don't even give him a line.
We don't even see him ever again. And then she's trying to make it in the bed of the truck, and
they didn't even let him say a '90s black guy line like "you motherfucker."
and then he gets back in the. So then she finally gets into the truck, and Leatherface is like, one last swing of the chainsaw, and then it's like a camera view of like them going 1 mile per hour. And freaking and they're looking at Leatherface.
They're like riding the brake, and it's like the slowest shot ever.
Cut it to her, and then they finally zoom away.
And then she starts laughing hysterically.
Oh yeah, laughing.
In
like,
corn syrup blood, like
she's in corn syrup blood. And she's like ah. And you're like wow.
And then it shows Leatherface. They leave the iconic horror villain alive though, and it's just badass.
And he's got the chainsaw, and he starts whipping around to the left, to the right, and diagonal. And he's like and he like moves above his head.
And as we know, we're doing this review because they just announced that Lionsgate bought the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. So what they're doing is doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, and they're ending up and they're taking the franchise. They're at the ending of the original 1974 version, where we see the last shot is Leatherface wheeling the chainsaw in the air
and it's
in the middle of the road.
It's gonna be pretty tight.
So him and his dad are still left over, and of course they're just gonna add a bunch of characters. But Lionsgate, we trust them with horror movies for sure. They did the Saw. It's gonna be the new Saw series for Lionsgate, and they got the rights for up to 6 movies. I don't know why Lionsgate would let that iconic horror villain go, because they own the rights to Freddy Krueger and Jason also, and Leatherface.
So it's like,
They did a documentary on it, bragging about how they own the rights to it.
So they better do it good.
No, they will, because they did Saw awesome.
Alright.
But they're going to mass produce them to hell.
Final thoughts?
No, but I heard they will film it in Louisiana. Which is whack.
It'll be tight.
They gotta film it in Texas.
Who knows? It might be awful. Who knows?
It's gonna be like the Bayou Leatherface.
Alright, final thoughts on what you thought of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Enough said. Classic.
Enough said. It's pretty tight. Pretty good. I mean, for its time, if you were stuck in that area, it was probably pretty badass.
Leave your comments and thoughts.
If you ever saw that, like at the drive-thru back in the day, that probably was awesome.
Leave your comments and thoughts on your opinion of the movie. We'd like to hear it.
Give us your review.
Send us a message. Hit us up.
Give us a review of our review. Hell. Alright, take it cheesy.